I have been watching Doctor Who this week, everybody. Can you believe it?
What a surprise.
Never would have guessed.
I wouldn't bother.
But I've only watched, in my defense, I haven't watched masses and masses of it. I've just watched 7 minutes worth, everybody. That's all. Just 7 minutes. But when the 7 minutes is as good as this particular 7 minutes, or at least in my mind, then I feel like I've taken in so much more nourishment, everybody. Because we're talking about Night of the Doctor, starring Paul McGann from 2013. So what it was, a few weeks ago, we talked about the TV movie here on the show, didn't we? At length, we did a whole show about that. And because I was watching the TV movie again, after a bit of a gap, I think 3 or 4 years, I decided that I'd like to see it in HD. So I bought the Blu-ray of the TV movie, and tucked away on that, again, was Night of the Doctor in full HD, obviously, in all its glory. So, I thought it'd be fun to do a bit of a follow-up piece on that. Was it a minisode? I think it counted as a minisode. It was on the red button, wasn't it?
It was a prequel. It was like billed as a prequel, wasn't it? Like, this is your taster before the big event, sort of.
Yeah.
From my memory.
Yeah,
it was because it had been filmed in the May of 2013, and of course when they dropped it, I've got the exact date of when they dropped it. It was the 14th of November 2013, so that was a week before the anniversary, and they were going to hold it back even further. Initially, it was going to come out sort of the night before the Day of the Doctor, but somebody out there, I think it was somebody at the Mirror, was about to leak it. The story was about to break, so they teased it about 2 hours before they dropped the video on that day, Barnaby. They really had to rush.
Well, I was very happy when it came out anyway. I thought it made my evening. That
great.
That mini-sode. I loved it.
A great shame. For anybody out there... Go on, sorry.
Oh, no, I remember I was in the kitchen and I was watching it, and then I just heard his voice and just mouth was just agog. I was so happy to see him back. Oh, he's still got it as well. He's still got it.
Because the last time we'd seen him, it had been at that point an unbelievable 17 years since we'd seen him in the TARDIS, and here we can see with Grace and Changley for that TV movie. And we talked about it a few weeks ago and relished his performance. And in the meantime, he'd done all that work for Big Finish and was very much one of the Doctors. He wasn't the outsider. He wasn't the George Lazenby of Doctor Who anymore. He was very much in its bosom, and the fandom couldn't wait any chance to hear or see Paul McGann. And I think that we felt that although the closer it got to the anniversary, it looked like classic Doctors, including Paul, were not going to be involved. There were whispers, I remember, throughout 2013. There were whispers about this on Gallifrey base. In fact, I saw a post from somebody who claimed that they were working in the studio on that day in May when it had been filmed, and everybody was, they tore this man down something rotten. And, the story pretty much just disappeared. So when this turned up all those months later, I was like, oh my God, it's true. The surprise was spoilt for me by somebody on social media, which I got to admit, I was a little ungracious about at the time. I may have called somebody a few names, but it didn't take anything away from the event, from the occasion itself. So just in case you haven't seen it for a while, this is what happened. It was during the Time War. The 8th Doctor attempts to rescue a pilot called Cass, whose spacecraft is crashing into the planet Khan. And when Cass realizes that the Doctor is a Time Lord, she refuses his aid, ignoring his claims that he has never himself taken part in the devastating Time War. But the Doctor refuses to abandon Cass, and both are killed when the ship crashes. Dun, dun, dun. A lot of story.
Am I the only one that didn't like it then?
Yes.
I knew you were going to say that, Ian.
Oh, Ian. Where did we even start with this? So, okay. So, did you watch it? Did you watch this on the day at the time, Ian? So, what was your first?
I was very excited when somebody told me about it. I was like, Paul's back, and I watched it, and my heart was broken because one, it was only 7 minutes long, and two, he wasn't wearing the costume. 3, he wasn't the Doctor that I knew that was in the movie. 4, it was a really bad script. 5,
this is
he was dead.
Ian,
6,
surely isn't this a much better costume?
No, not at all.
Really?
It looks like they raided the BBC wardrobe and went 19th century. Let's just get something. Let's just throw something on him, and that's exactly what they did. The sets weren't very good. The thing was short. he died, yet his body wasn't scattered because the ship got destroyed to pieces, yet his body was intact. You know, a bit of logic there that would come.
Okay, I'll give you that one. I'll give you that one.
It was just stupid. It was just stupid that, you know, he had these drinks to drink, and it's like, you could be a woman, you could be an old man, you could be. I'm like, oh, for God's sakes, why didn't look? The biggest crime they did here is one crate.
I'll let him get this out of his system.
Right.
He's on a roll.
One crate the War Doctor when it should have been Paul McGann. That's one crime.
That's another story, though. That's Day of the Doctor, really.
Two, right, is that they didn't give him a proper episode. I would have forgiven them if he was wearing that costume and it was just the same story and it was bigger. It was 30 minutes, even 45 minutes. That they would have given us back the Paul McGann Doctor properly. But this seems to be, it comes across like it's an afterthought, and they just...
Well, that's because it was. Stephen Moffat didn't, amazingly, he always thought that Paul McGann would have turned him down. He always thought that Paul McGann wouldn't be interested in returning.
Why would he think that?
I have no idea. But he claims that the idea came to him after he'd written The Day of the Doctor. And obviously created the War Doctor during that, and he decided that it would be good, that it would build up to that effectively to tell the story about how the War Doctor came into being. And so in his head, the best idea to represent that was to show that regeneration, that crisis that turned the character physically and mentally from the Doctor that we'd always followed into the War Doctor. And he approached McGann through his agent, who got the yes, I'd love to do that. And so Moffat then set about constructing this mini episode to be an additional surprise for the fans, as you say, through the red button there. He has included it as part of the adaptation, the target book of his of the Day of the Doctor, so it's incorporated in there. But yes, it was a kind of afterthought. I find it difficult to believe that they didn't ask Paul before, because to me it would have been. It would have been pretty obvious. But that being said, they didn't. I'm not talking about Day of the Doctor. I'm talking about Night of the Doctor.
Yeah, so am I.
In the realms of this 7 minutes, I think that's just personal taste. I love what he's wearing, and I think this is absolutely the same character in every way. The way he plays it, it's note perfect to what he'd done in the TV movie, but he'd taken in enough of the evolution of the character Barnaby that we'd heard on audio.
Yeah, and with the costume as well, I think it was like quite a sort of natural evolution of the costume, and shows you what kind of how that, and even maybe even a change of his character for staying from being the Byron-esque, very sort of like happy Doctor we knew, to being more solemn and more kind of ragged by the Time War and by his time, and by through some of the things that he's been through in the Big Finish audios as well. And also this episode made the Big Finish audios canon as well, because he mentioned Keres, one of my favorite Big Finish companions, and Charlie and Tamsin and the rest of them. So that was also great as well. So as a Big Finish fan, as I am, that also may be part of why I love Night of the Doctor.
Well, somebody mentioned in the chat.
I was going to say, because I have to go in a couple of minutes, I just want to quickly say I loved this because this was my first introduction to the Eighth Doctor. I hadn't watched the movie.
How did you find the red? Did you find it on the red button as well, and just Doctor Who, and you just hit that to see what would happen, or had somebody told you about it?
I think just some of my friends are like, they've done like a prequel thing. Maybe you should watch it. So I think I watched it online afterwards. I think I found it on YouTube, and I was just like, I'd heard of the Eighth Doctor, but I'd never watched him. And I just think, for me, 7 minutes, and by the end of that 7 minutes, I was sad that he was going. And I think that just proves how good it was, that a Doctor who I've only been with for those 7 minutes, McGann, he was sort of old-fashioned, but not like really old-fashioned. He was a bit sarky, he was a bit cheeky. I like that in the shot, actually. How he was like, oh, did you expect anybody else? It was like that little spark of cheekiness, which I really quite like with Paul.
Somebody in the chat a moment ago, Charlotte, described it as a wow moment when we've got it up on screen now, where the sparks of the ship are sort of setting off like that there, Barnaby, and he's just there resting, as if this is just another day for him. He's there taking care of business, doing what he can, and when he walks towards the camera there, it really, for me, I remember at the time I was watching it with my children. They were like 11 at the time, and it had dropped around midday. I'd seen it drop. I'd got it, but I decided to wait for my kid. I had to wait about 5 hours to watch this until my kids finished school. So I went to pick them up and put them in front of the TV and said that something special has just happened. Played this, and all four of us sat there sort of tingling with our mouths open. You know, it was, and that moment, that was, even though I'd had it spoilt for me, I think what replaced that, what replenished that awe for me was the reaction from my kids. As much as the tingles that I felt.
Yeah, and I think Moffat always works best, and then I'll go in a minute. I think Moffat always works best when it's short, when he's not having this big old arc he has to write, because it was such a condensed bit of writing.
I think it's a great little script.
I think that's Moffat's strength, though, when he's under pressure a bit, when it's shorter, and I think that actually suited him for that. So I as a first taste for the Eighth Doctor, I think it was really good. So thank you for having me on.
It's our pleasure.
Great to see
so
you.
Pleased you could make it again, Charlotte.
Thank you very much. See you, everybody.
We'll catch you soon. Bye bye. Yeah, we've got it. Generally speaking, this is a very popular episode, and I think it really added to the occasion myself. And the story at the time, and watching it again now, I always feel.
I feel sad when I watch it.
Well, so do I.
feel sad. I feel sad that he's been wasted, and he's only 7 minutes long, and that's
I felt sad. I'll tell you why I felt sad. I'd followed the character on audio.
Well, I haven't, so maybe that's the difference.
Absolutely rigidly.
Oh, he's great in audio. He's
absolutely
really
rigidly. And what I liked about the audios, Ian and Barnaby, was the fact they at that point they were still open-ended, and we still didn't know what ultimately would happen to the Eighth Doctor. And I did feel sad as the story goes on that it became obvious this was his very last adventure. And so I felt that was a pity that Stephen Moffat had to do that. And I keep thinking, would there have been another way to tell this story? But there probably wouldn't have been, Simon, I feel.
No, I don't think there was any other way at all. I mean, I agree with Ian in that, it makes me sad because I still think it's... I think it's an insult, in all honesty, to a brilliant, brilliant actor to actually... It's almost like why Colin Baker refused to do the regeneration story to lead into Time in the Rani. And actually, I wouldn't have blamed Paul McGann if he'd said, no, I'm not coming back to do 6 minutes of material for you. So I get that. But... Putting my frustration, my fanish anger aside, as an episode, you can't call it an episode, as a minisode, 6-7 minutes, I love it. And for me personally, it's way better than the Day of the Doctor, which follows it, which I just still find pretty much unwatchable. So actually, this to me is this is.
I know, everybody. I know. Where do we find them? Go on, carry on.
I mean. I mean, Simon's, I do like the Day of the Doctor, but, I agree with Simon. I personally think they wasted him. If you're going to go that far and build a set and bring him back, give him 30 minutes, give him 45 minutes. We want to bring him back properly. And this is what's insulting, I find, to Paul McGann's strength, is that he's only given 7 minutes with a terrible script as far as I was concerned. That whole logic of the ship blowing up and he was still intact. And so was the girl. For some reason, it made no sense to me whatsoever.
We don't see her full body, do we? We see.
We do. When she's on the thing, when she goes to he goes to see her, and also 4 minutes. That line. 4 minutes. I can watch TV. Blah blah blah. I thought. I didn't like. I didn't like that line at all. For me, that was typical Stephen Moffat and something that the Matt Smith Doctor would probably say, and I would have accepted it from the Matt Smith Doctor, but it didn't quite ring true for Paul McGann's Doctor. No, that moment is the only moment where I think the writing was at fault. This whole that we're looking at on screen now, these screen caps, where Cass refuses to go with him. That is a standout moment. That is electrifying, and the way they both play it. It makes my hair stand on end.
And the other thing is,
why?
The other reason I like it is because we're back to kind of depressing, because actually logically you would expect Cass to be saved at the end of it, and she's not. She's dead. That's it. She is gone. He doesn't save her, and I like that. I like the fact that actually this character that in a couple of minutes we grow to like she is killed and that's it, she's gone. What is wrong with us, Vanessa? I don't know. Lots, basically. My biggest complaint, actually, and don't get me wrong, I do like the episode. It works for me. My biggest complaint is using Claire Higgins as O'Healer, which really cheeses me off. Why on earth they didn't ask Gilly Brown back to play Ohika? Okay, which was absolutely the most logical thing to do. I find it insulting that they brought a character back called O'Healer, which was clearly an echo of Ohika. Gilly Brown is still around. You could be generous to the production team and say, well, they did ask Gilly Brown and she turned it down. No, they didn't. And I know this because I've spoken to Gilly Brown at a convention and I expressed my annoyance that they hadn't asked her back. And she said, yeah, they never contacted me, never got asked to do it. She was really visibly upset and insulted that she hadn't been asked back to play the part, because she would have played it just as well as Claire Higgins plays.
Well, it's just like not asking Paul to come to do the Day of the Doctor. Well, do you know what I mean? It's just like that. The things that make sense, they didn't do.
And that's what frustrates me. Brilliant. Of course, I was so chuffed to see the Sisterhood of Khan back. I love the fact that they brought them back. But it's just a complete slap in the face that you don't bring the one character and the one actress back that you should have done. And the fans, let's be honest, if it had been Ohika played by Gilly Brown, we'd have all been made up. And I feel let down instead.
We're looking at a still on screen at the moment from the Brain of Morbius, where we first met the Sisterhood of Khan there. And as you say, it is, with the actress still alive, it's difficult to understand why they did. I mean, I do like the character that we're offered in her place.
Yes,
Claire Higgins
agree.
would return. I thought that she was good, and I thought the way they recreated Khan and that society was perhaps, they were all very pretty, weren't they? The Sisterhood, but I thought it was quite evocative. Well done. I thought Claire Higgins was fantastic in the part.
Because everybody was asking that question, wasn't it? How does Paul McGann's Doctor fit into this? Now we've got the War Doctor. I remember the first time I saw the War Doctor where his back was turned, and then he turns around and it's John Hurt. And it says John Hurt as the Doctor. And I was thinking, what? And I was thinking, well, what about Paul McGann? And then what I think the story, as you said, Dan, is that he thought it when he was writing, blah, blah, blah. But what I think is somebody said to him, there's a hole in the plot. What about Paul McGann? And he went, oh, shit. He started writing. That's what I reckon happened. And then that's why we got this crap. Do you know what I mean? So
for a long time, everyone thought that it was the Eighth Doctor was the one who ended the Time War and killed for a long time. I think even Rusty Davis wrote something that
last year for lockdown.
Well,
for lockdown, didn't he?
Oh well, no, this was ages ago. It was some kind of like in some kind of thing he wrote on the internet, saying where he wrote that the Ninth Doctor was found after his regeneration wandering around in Edwardian clothing, but this wasn't actually proper kind of canon or something like that. But I do agree. I quite like Night of the Doctor, but I do agree. Give him more time. Actually, seeing more of Paul would have been.
I'm not saying it's perfect, but do you see why people like it, Ian?
Because look. I can see why people like it, right? Because they're huge fans of Doctor Who. And you have some fans that will accept anything from Doctor Who. And then you have fans like me that love it, but question it at the same time. And that's the kind of fan that I am. I love it and I want it to be better, but that's just my opinion. What's better is other people's opinion.
Is there value in minisodes as a format?
Yes, of course. I made a minisode, didn't I? But what I'm saying is that we're not talking about Melissa. We're talking about Doctor Who. We're talking about Paul McGann, who everybody wants back.
We're talking about modern media. We're talking about modern media, though, aren't we? And this kind of content, supported content through Red Button, was very fashionable at the time, and now they tend to put it out more on YouTube, don't they?
But I think the difference.
It made sense that Doctor Who had this kind of item as well.
Absolutely. And I thought the minisodes were great that they used to put out during the David Tennant years and the Matt Smith years. And it's interesting, isn't it, that it kind of shows, again, the waning of popularity of Doctor Who, because when was the last time you saw any extra content like that? The difference... Years. The difference, I think, that comes with Night of the Doctor to the other stuff is and somebody will correct me on this, but all of the other mini episodes, as I remember them, were all associated with a specific episode, and they featured those characters from that episode generally. So they were a continuation of a Matt Smith episode. They got the Matt Smith characters, and they got Amy. The problem with Night of the Doctor is, no, this was Paul McGann. This was his second stab at Doctor Who. He'd been given his first one in the movie, and his second stab at televised Doctor Who is a 6-minute minisode, and that's the problem with it. So whereas the other, and I am being picky here, as I say, don't get me wrong, I like it, but that's why I think we're left disappointed by it, because the other mini episodes were the life story of Amy Pond and Rory at home making a cup of tea and some toast or whatever it was. So you weren't. That's why the Paul McGann one feels insulting, because they brought an actor back to do 6 minutes, whereas the other stuff was just a continuation with the same characters. And that's why I think the other mini-episodes work better.
I know you don't want me to talk about this, but I will. In fact, right, when I think about it very closely, and his performance is really good in that 6-7 minutes long. It is very good. Especially when it tells everybody to get out, do you know what I mean, before he drinks the thing. That's really great performance. And when I think about it now, I think, do you know what? He probably would have been better than John Hurt. He probably would have been awesome.
I really liked him.
I can't understand.
I did like him too.
I can't understand why once Chris Eccleston wasn't available, why he didn't go directly to Paul. I'll never understand that, Barnaby. But
well,
I love John Hurt. John Hurt is one of my absolute all-time favourite actors, without any doubt whatsoever. So I love John Hurt, and John Hurt in Doctor Who, bring it on. But I would have put John Hurt in as a different character, and he would have been just as brilliant, and left Paul McGann in The Day of the Doctor.
I would have immediately when Chris said no, or something happened with Chris. I would have, if I was the showrunner, I'd have went, right, get Paul on the phone.
But that's why you have to question Moffat for either he forgot that Paul McGann, by all accounts, was there, or
because every time Paul McGann talks about it, Simon, and he was talking about it at the time as well, all through 2013, people at conventions were saying, "Are you going to be in it? Are you going to do anything?" And he would say, and I think they were asking him probably the year before as well, "I haven't been asked. I haven't been asked." And I know that they couldn't say, but you believed him. He was asked on camera.
Wasn't there this thing about the Doctor Who the movie, right? Because I mean, this is the way I remember it. When Doctor Who the movie came out, right, I loved it. I thought it was the good step forward for Doctor Who. Every Doctor Who fan I knew hated it, right? They said, "Oh, it's not BBC, it's not this, it's not Doctor Who kissing someone, blah blah blah, whatever," right? And even in the Russell T show on Channel 4, when I can't remember what it was called, and had all these characters was talking about Doctor Who, and somebody said Paul McGann, and they said no, he's not part of the canon. So at that moment in time, they didn't think Paul McGann's character was part of the canon of Doctor Who, and Russell T believed that, but then he changed his mind halfway through, and maybe Moffat thought that. That's why he brought in John, what's his name, John Hurt. But I still think that was a dick move. They should have went straight to Paul, because Paul is part of Doctor Who, always will be, right? And brought him into the Day of the Doctor.
And again, following on from that, Moffat should have known that fans would have absolutely exploded with excitement if they had put Paul McGann in. So, I think if we're brutally honest, if you've given fans the choice, you can either have John Hurt or you can have Paul McGann.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what people would have gone for.
Well, even for this minisode, everyone exploded, thinking, "Oh my God, is Paul going to get his own series now?" There are huge things about that, and but no, nothing else about that.
That's never died down either, has it?
That still hasn't died down. I mean, people still want that. I still want that. Really,
they would give money to Class, right, and make a stupid show like Class, but they wouldn't give money to bring back Paul McGann. It's so ludicrous. The way the BBC treats Doctor Who.
Well, again, it goes along with what I've always said, which is the BBC don't know what to do with Doctor Who. They don't know what they've got with the brands. They just don't know how to use it. Simple as that.
But here's something that I do like about it. I mean, yes, okay, but well, the Doctor, as you said, the Doctor does die in this. He does. Yeah. He's dead. When that ship crashes.
We finally got the regeneration scene. Finally.
Yes.
So the Doctor, because I'm looking back to the War Games when the second Doctor tells Jamie and Zoe that they can live forever barring accidents. You know, it was difficult. I suppose the longer that his life went on, the more difficult it was to believe that he didn't meet with an actual fatal accident. But here he does. He is killed in that crash, and this time not brought back to life by his regenerative abilities, but by the Sisterhood of Khan. I think this marks a great watershed moment.
But hold on, right?
Let me finish. In the Doctor, a great watershed moment in the Doctor's life. That okay, this was made retroactively, but because where it takes place in the continuity, that nicely divides everything classic, including the TV movie, from everything from Rose forward. It marks, and how I've always looked at it as well in my headcanon. I know that some of us like headcanon. I think, Barnaby, you do spot of headcanon, don't you? I know we know a few people that do out there. And in my headcanon, the fact that he is brought back to life by the Sisterhood of Khan with their flame, with their elixir of life and their potion. In my head, I told myself for years that this was the reason why all the regeneration effects from this moment on are always sort of the Doctor bursting into flames.
That's interesting.
Was the flame from the Sisterhood, because it was a different method of regeneration that he'd been pimped up, he'd been juiced up like a car in the Fast and the Furious, Simon.
That's really interesting, because my one of my complaints with Night of the Doctor is always it would be a different regeneration to the ones that we see of 9 to 10 and 10 to 11. And actually, yeah, you're quite right. Now, within the timeline, this is the first time on the Doctor's timeline that he regenerates with this golden energy. So actually,
when Peter changed, he'd have no golden energy. When Peter changed, when Matt changed to Peter, there was no golden energy. He just went bang, and that was
the end of the regeneration.
That was and supposedly new regenerative cycle.
But also, right, in this one, right,
the whole exploded. Remember when he was facing the Daleks?
Yeah, well,
completely.
Exactly. The whole ship crashed, right, and basically his body's intact. Yeah, and he's dead. He should have regenerated. If he was burnt to a crisp, he'd be dead. Right?
Well, no,
it doesn't make any sense.
Well, up until recently, though, they'd never said that Time Lords were actually immortal. That there wasn't, the inclination. He
still had more lives left.
The hint was that
he's got hundreds of lives left.
That Time Lords could still be killed could still be killed outright if there was a force great enough. And that this would be to be killed in a crash like this. I mean, I think simply, Ian, the real reason why we're never going to see the Doctor's sort of dismembered corpse at a crash site is simply because it's a family show. I think it's.
I think Ian is correct in that. It's somewhat unbelievable that the ship would have crashed and both Cass and the Doctor would be in one piece. I don't have a problem with the Doctor being killed outright, because you're right, Dan, it has always been said that the Doctor can be killed. It lives forever, barring accidents. That that quote is in there. So if he was on a crashing ship, he's dead. That's it. There wasn't chance to regenerate, so he would be dead. And that's one of the aspects of the Night of the Doctor that I like, that it's the Sisterhood that have used the elixir that we all know and love from the Brayton movies to bring him back to life. That's great. And I love your headcanon idea that that's where the golden energy comes from, which I'd never thought before. I'm having that one. Thank you.
I think someone's already picked out a. I think somebody's already.
Well, of course, in hindsight as well, ever since we did see the first Doctor's regeneration reimagined in Twice Upon a Time, and Moffat used the golden glow flame kind of energy in that too. Yes,
but they had a reason to. The reason why they glowed was because something happened to them before they changed. Like, for instance, with David Tennant, he took all that power to save Wilfred, didn't he? And that's why he blew up. And the same thing with Matt Smith. That's no, not Matt Smith. Who's the one before? Chris Eccleston. Yeah, he took all that power from Rose, and that's why he blew up. And that's why I thought the reason why he blows up is because of those factors. And then when Matt went from Matt to Peter, nothing happened because he didn't swallow a power that went into him. He didn't need to, he just changed from there to Peter. That's the logic I used. I'd never use this because, as far as I'm concerned, this is just as far as I'm concerned, it's rubbish. It doesn't belong in Doctor Who at all.
I do. I mean, you mentioned it earlier on, Barnaby. It's hardly the meat and potatoes of this story, but it's a nice touch that Moffat did include those name checks of Big Finish companions in there, because who would the Doctor be thinking of at a time when he was about to give up his life? Previous Doctors have done that. We saw Tom Baker's Doctor do that in Logopolis and Peter Davison's in Caves of Androzani. So I suppose this is the equivalent of the floating heads, isn't it, when he mentions them all?
I mean, that was probably another reason why I just love this minisode, because I just like Big Finish, and he monkeys say what Big Finish names, and I'm like, yay, I'm happy now. So,
it was lucky that ship was flying towards that planet with those people on, that he would crash in there. This is the logic. I mean, Doctor Who needs to grow up. The writing needs to grow up, and this is a prime example of it. That the logic is not there. And you expect me to accept this as something good? No, I do not accept it as something good.
Well, I get
the
impression, Ian, that this wasn't the first. This wasn't the first time the Doctor had done something like this. He is in the middle of a battlefield.
He would have saved her if it was Tom Baker. So Tom Baker would have found a way.
I think the reason why he looked so casual when he was doing that is because he'd done this before, and usually the people who he's saving are really quite pleased to see him, and so he's mopping up. So whatever planet they're crashing into, he's probably done this 50 times before. It just how happens that on this occasion it's into a planet that we
no, that's a terrible excuse, Dan.
I mean, no, it makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense.
No, it doesn't. You know how big the universe is? Do you know how many planets there are? Come on.
That's what I'm saying. It's probably maybe even thousands of times.
I don't know.
We accept that he was this deep into the
No, you accept it, not me.
This is his way of being a kind of conscientious objector.
I guess.
And a lot of conscientious objectors during wartime do this kind of medical work, don't they? Even if they don't fight, they make up for it.
Well, he's a doctor, isn't he? So
you're right. You do have to question the coincidence that he just happens to crash right next to the
entertainment, everybody. It's entertainment. The role regeneration effect has caught people's imaginations rather. Alex Storer says one of the exciting things with the classic series is all the different regeneration sequences, and the excitement looking forward to how they would do it post 2005. It's just been lazy.
Yes,
I feel the same way as you do, Alex, Barnaby, Simon. I do feel that way, and yet I do think the continuity may have helped it somehow. May have helped enrich the universe a bit for the normies. And the momentum of it.
I don't think they're
I think the cachet.
They've got to pay for another effect or something. They've got to use their imagination.
I always thought that if I was in charge, I would have the Doctor change and keep moving as he's changing. Do you know what I mean? And then suddenly he stops and he's someone else. I've never seen that done before. They're always standing still so the effects could.
I don't like this standing.
That's the whole.
I've always wondered about that. In fact, I always imagined before it happened that what with the the running thing, I imagined that David Tennant's Doctor would probably regenerate on the move. But that never happened. That never happened either, really.
I would love that to happen. I'd love that.
It's sort of. I thought that was a bit of a missed opportunity, but I do get the sort of ritualisticness of standing star shaped. I can see why they do that. Of course, the story did end with the emergence of a new Doctor, not Doctor, as played by John Hurt, beautifully sort of rendered the reflection in the goblet after the Eighth Doctor had drank the potion. And the story continued from there on. We knew John Hurt was going to be in it at that point, but I was still kind of wowed by this too. I appreciated, and even though we'd lost the Eighth Doctor and I'd seen him die, and I never wanted to see that character die, I did feel, okay, now I'm even more up for this than I was 24 hours earlier. It really did do its job. It stitched John Hurt's Doctor into the lore of the show, and by giving us the younger War Doctor there reflected in the goblet, it also, I think it kind of made up for that which Moffat was taking away by showing us the death of the Eighth Doctor, making up for that by giving us a new Doctor so much younger with all those years in between left to fill. I'm so glad that John Hurt got to play that part. I think he's a wonderful actor. Everything he did in Day of the Doctor, and there's something iconic as well about that moment too.
There are some fan films out there that actually do the regeneration much better than the way they did it on that. There's one I saw recently where he's what's his name, Paul McGann's lying and his face changes into John Hurt, which is really good. So they could have made it better, but then again, I guess the budget was really small for this one, so which is a crime, as I keep saying.
I love this comment here from Vanessa watching in the chat. It's a good thing. I love you people. I know
you've got to have different opinions, right? That's what makes fandom so wonderful, as far as I'm concerned. I can disagree with Barnaby, I can disagree with Simon, and we still love each other. Do you know?
Exactly. This is the beautiful thing. As long as we can all have a laugh about it and smile, that's the most important thing, and not take it too seriously.
Yeah.
Night of the Doctor. It's got millions of views. It's still on YouTube for anybody to watch at any time. I watched it twice last night, in fact, back to back, and it's available on Blu-ray on the Doctor Who the movie.
Is
Blu-ray there?
You've got the Blu-ray, have you? And the movie?
Yeah.
Dan,
Yeah.
is it still in 4:3 or did they obviously?
It's still in 4:3, yeah, and it's looking better than ever.
Wow!
I held off buying this because I didn't think it would be a big enough upgrade, but boy, it is a great upscaling of the TV movie. It looks incredible, and so does Night of the Doctor. I've got to give them their dues for that. The War Doctor's story continues now on audio. The Young War Doctor. This has been tremendously successful. The War Doctor Begins from Big Finish. Forged in Fire was released, I think it was last month, with Jonathan Carley taking the role of the young War Doctor. They're going to continue that. I think the next set's out in the run up to Christmas. Looking forward to seeing what they do with that over the years, sort of weaving that in and doing other things with it. I know the War Doctor, the John Hurt audios did really, really well. So it's definitely part of Doctor Who lore, and as is Night of the Doctor is very it's very cherished, I think. So if you were giving this, let's think. If you were, how many blasts of regenerative energy out of 5 would you give this, Barnaby?
For me, 4 blasts out of 5. Because, it would have been great if it was longer, but it was just what I wanted, and it really got me excited for the 50th anniversary special. And it was just so great to see Tom. I mean, it was such a landmark thing when everyone was just so excited about Doctor Who, and it was just huge, and going to the Excel and seeing everyone talking about it there. For me, probably just for memories, 4 out of 5, and it's just so wonderful to see. It was just so great to see Paul on camera again. Oh, fantastic. So, 4.
How many blasts of regenerative energy would you give it out of 5, Simon?
3. Because because I do like it, but it's really, really got its faults, which are we've been into, so that's fine. But 3 for me, because I like it, but it's far from perfect.
How about you, Ian?
Don't ask him. 2.
We're going lower than I thought. And lower.
No, it's only because of Paul McGann. I like it because of Paul McGann, and you know what I said. I think it's a tragedy, that he's only in it for 6 minutes. I want more Paul McGann. In fact, if I was in charge of the BBC, I would commission a series right now with Paul McGann right now. So the ratings will go through the roof. You know it will, but they won't give us that. So there you go. But anyway, 2. I give it 2.
Well, you'll be pleased and maybe not surprised to learn that I give this a full marks. For me, this is a 5. 5 regeneration blasts out of 5 from me. I absolutely love it. Watching it again twice last night, it only reinforced it to me because I hadn't watched it for 3 or 4 years. I thought, God, this is good. Paul McGann is excellent. And I remember also there's this moment too, which wasn't in the Night of the Doctor or the Day of the Doctor even, but Paul McGann himself shared this onto social media back in 2013. This is Paul having his moment in the TARDIS there back in 2013 in that
teasing him.
Doesn't he look
Michael,
you'll never have this, Paul.
You'll never have this anymore, Paul. You might as well suck it up now.
So what we see now is Paul McGann
finish with you,
standing legs akimbo in Michael Pickwoad's beautiful TARDIS set there from 2013.
I like that set. I think the set's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's a much missed TARDIS set from that time. And Paul, I think Paul was a great sport. I think he's been a great sport the entire time he's been associated with Doctor Who.
Yeah,
I think he's handled it with great grace.
Yes.
and with sensitivity towards the fan
Dignity.
base, because I get the impression, I know that he's a fan of things like football and cycling and Kurosawa films and all those things. I know that Paul McGann does love. So I think he understands us now. But I look back to the frightened 35-year-old Barnaby, the 35-year-old actor, who, when they asked him while he was making the TV movie, will you ever go to a convention? Are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? And the man was quaking with fear. Do you remember
I don't
that?
know what he's got himself into. Yeah.